Hey guys, my name is Shirish. So I've been using the OnePlus Nord for almost 2 weeks now, and this is my full review. By the way, I've been using the phone with the skin from Gadget Shields. I'll make sure to drop the purchase link for this skin in the description box below. So if in case you are into skins and stuff just like me, then be sure to head over to the link in the description box below. So now in my opinion, the OnePlus Nord has like two sides to it. One is something that you see on the paper on the spec sheet, and the other side is something that you cannot really find on paper. Something that you will only know about when you experience or when you use the OnePlus Nord. And it's actually really hard to describe it as well, which is why I'm having like really mixed feelings when it comes to the OnePlus Nord. Now, as I held the phone for the first time in my hands, I just realized how light the phone feels. I mean, it's not really that light of a phone. It still weighs, I guess, 184 grams. But the weight distribution on the Nord, it's so good. And if I talk about the plastic frame specifically, now in my initial impressions video, I was a little bit negative, I guess, about the frame thing in general. But I did not really stress on the part that this is not a deal breaker at all. If you have used a phone with the metal frame in the past, then yes, you will notice some difference between both of the phones. But the thing is, individually, this phone actually feels quite a lot good to hold in hand. Now also, there have been a lot of talks revolving around the display on the OnePlus Nord. So much that I actually made a dedicated video on this, hoping that I would get like a lot of views, just like Kaustubh from KD Cloudy got. But I didn't. Like I just ended up with, I guess, 2000 views. But anyways, the way I see it, these issues, they're not really that big of a deal, because I've also used the Realme X2 Pro in the past, and that phone also had this similar issue of green tint. Couple of my friends with Samsung phones also have faced this issue, and I did conclude that no, this is not a deal breaker. Even if you go to some old forums and posts on the internet, you will notice that this issue has existed on a lot of OLED displays. The thing is that the OnePlus Nord, it's so much hyped that this particular issue as well, it's just blowing out of proportion. So you just don't freak out if you have the green tint issue on your OLED display. That's just how OLED displays are. But the panel itself, it's great. It gets decently bright outdoors, and the colors as well, they're pretty vibrant. Along with that, you also get these different modes to choose from when it comes to display settings. So if in case you're not really into those vibrant and super saturated colors on the AMOLED, then you can go back to a more natural and accurate approach. And on top of that, this is a 90Hz refresh rate display panel, which also contributes to the overall fluidity and the experience of the phone. So yeah, when it comes to display, I personally have been liking the display quite a lot. No complaints when it comes to display. Now in total, the phone has got 6 cameras. Some of these, they're straight off bad, but some of these are actually good. Now before getting the phone, I was a little bit skeptical about the cameras on the OnePlus Nord, mainly because I had watched a lot of Western creators criticizing the cameras on the OnePlus Nord. But the thing is, there's a difference between the Western market and the Indian market. When it comes to Western smartphone market, or when it comes to markets like USA or UK, this phone is not selling in USA, I guess. But anyways, if we talk about European markets, the competitors the OnePlus Nord has got are iPhone SE and the Google Pixel 4a. Now in comparison with those phones, the OnePlus Nord doesn't really have great cameras. But if we talk about Indian smartphone market, this phone is rivaled by Realme X2 Pro, Redmi K20 Pro, Realme X3. And when you talk about those phones and the OnePlus Nord is not really that bad at all. So when there's a lot of light, both the main and the ultra wide cameras do well. The images can, appear to be a little bit soft if you pixel peep too much, but that's just OnePlus's noise reduction algorithm. The dynamic range actually was surprisingly good, not super aggressive, but it's still pretty great. And the good part, the shifting of colors between the main camera and the ultra wide angle camera is very tiny, unlike most phones in the same price bracket. The low light photos, they're good too, not something to compete against the Pixel, but you get the point. Now at the front, we have 2 selfie cameras. One is a standard selfie camera, and the other one is an ultra wide angle camera. Now this, in my opinion, is a lot more practical than the depth sensor that's used in other phones. So yeah, I appreciate the ultra wide angle shooter on the OnePlus Nord, but the quality of the images coming out of this camera, they're not really that great. They are first of all very soft. Even if you just zoom in just a little bit, you might notice the lack of details and clarity. And secondly, the dynamic range, not just in the wide angle camera but also in the main camera as well, it's not that good. And personally, I'm not really the kind of person who would get affected with the quality of the front camera, so it's actually easy for me to completely overlook the front cameras on the OnePlus Nord. I mean, they're good, they're average, but they're not really that much great. Now, when the phone was announced, I was a bit worried about the gaming on this phone, mainly because of the chip that's used. So, as you know, the phone has got a Snapdragon 765G, which is great, don't get me wrong, but it's simply not up to the level of Snapdragon 800 series processors, which are seen in other phones in the same price bracket. By default, the game supports up to 40 FPS on PUBG, and it works well, no complaints with that. You officially still can't game at 60 FPS, but I guess OnePlus might be able to add 60 FPS to PUBG soon with an update, so that's there. I also play PES, which is a fairly graphic intensive game, and at high graphics, the phone does struggle at times to pull out 60 FPS, but for the most part, it does a decent job, I guess. But I feel that's all okay. What's not okay is the omission of the headphone jack. And I mean, why? There are just a lot of things that OnePlus can copy from the other flagships or flagship phones in general. Not something that, even flagship phones suck at. I mean, the inclusion of headphone jack is so crucial for a lot of people. And I mean, I really wanted the headphone jack. And looking at all of this, I don't even think that OnePlus targeted this phone towards heavy users or gamers in particular. And then if I talk about the battery life, it's good. But that stops there. Nothing beyond that. I've been getting 6 hours of screen on time consistently with moderate usage. Now, don't of course expect battery life like budget phones. Those phones are ridiculous when it comes to battery life. This one with light to medium usage can get you through a day without any issues, but with heavy usage you might want to charge the phone a couple of times a day, I guess. But what's good is the warp charge. This is ridiculously fast. Now, I've used a 50-watt charger in the past, so the charging on this phone wasn't really a surprise for me. But yes, the charging times are crazy good. In fact, it is so good that it just compensates for the average battery life on the phone. So even if you run out of juice, you will get it back within, I guess, few 10-15 minutes, I guess. And now, also talking about the speaker, it is not good. Yeah, it's loud and all, but in the same price bracket, we've got Realme X2 Pro, and that phone has really good speakers. The speakers on this one, they simply aren't really that good. I personally don't like to listen to music using the speakers on this one. Once again, another corner cut. Now, this thing that I spoke about, the experience. Now, it's not just about the Oxygen OS, which is, fluid and snappy and it's all great and it's clutter free and all that kind of stuff. It's also about the weight distribution. It's about the alert slider, which I found really convenient. It's also about the way the phone feels in the hand. It's also about the placement of the in-display fingerprint scanner. It's also about the tiny tweaks that OnePlus does in their phones just to make the phone feel a lot more better. For example, the vibration motor. The vibration motor on the OnePlus Nord, it's not really that much great, but they've tuned it in a certain way that it actually feels a lot more subtle and it's actually great. Now, chances are all of this that I'm talking about right now doesn't make any sense to you, and that's totally understandable because I feel that I'm not really describing my experience with the OnePlus Nord really that well. But all I'm trying to say is, even though the OnePlus Nord is just another mid-range phone, it feels just a little bit better than the rest of the mid-range phones. And also I feel that the OnePlus Nord is a little bit balanced of a phone. See, we've got the Pixel 4a, which is mainly known for its cameras. There are other things which are totally trash on that phone. Then we've got the iPhone SE, which is great when it comes to performance and cameras, but when it comes to battery life and the design overall, it completely sucks. But then there's the OnePlus Nord, which doesn't do anything mind-blowing. It doesn't really have the same cameras as the Pixel or the iPhone. It doesn't really have the same performance as the K20 Pro or Realme X2 Pro. But it does everything in a more balanced fashion that it's really easy to recommend this to anyone who is not a gamer. Now, if I recall OnePlus Nord's marketing campaign, they made it look like this is quite a lot similar to the OnePlus Nord. But clearly this is not. The phone itself has a very different approach. This is the kind of approach that generally Apple or Samsung or Google would follow for their products. But this is OnePlus, and they've done it. And in my opinion, they've actually managed to make the OnePlus Nord feel a lot more better than what it actually is. It's just taking a decently spec phone and making it look and feel great. So yes, the OnePlus Nord to an extent has surprised me with the overall experience thing. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope the video helped you in some way or the other. If it did, be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.